I can't believe that I just kind of sat through this show. I was excited for this. But either way, it's weird to talk about this show because I'm a big fan of The Weeknd, and I don't know, it's weird. Anyway, I watched The Idol, so you didn't have to. The Sunday night slots on HBO have always been like a big thing for TV, even though streaming is still it's still big now. Having that Sunday night slot on HBO is a big deal. Earlier this year, The Last of Us had it, and right before this slot, we had the one-two punch of Succession and Barry with their final seasons, which I really want to do a video on Barry, but I gotta figure out how I'm gonna do that. So what's after that? What was gonna follow up essentially an all-timer Sunday night on HBO? We have the drama slot, which we're not going to talk about the comedy slot, but it is something called the Righteous Gemstones, which apparently is supposed to be good. But the hour-long drama spot is filled up by this show, The Idol. I should add this to say that The Weeknd is one of my favorite musicians. Even though his tour got rescheduled and he never actually showed up to where I am, I dropped like $150 for one of his tickets. That's never happened with me for any other artist before. I like The Weeknd a lot. So when it was announced that he was not only producing this show and starring in it, I got interested. You know, he's one of my favorite musicians. That connection was already there. Along with teaming up with Sam Levinson, the creator of another big HBO show which has racked up some awards, Euphoria. It's not my favorite show. I think it's a little weird. They're teenagers, but I do think that there are good parts of that show. On top of that, like Euphoria, this is an HBO and A24 collab. So A24 had a huge hand in helping make this, which they're usually a good name, right? But even then, there was so much that happened behind the scenes on this show that I was still worried, but I still wanted to watch the show. It's still feeling like that. The main writer, Amy Seimetz, who I think is a pretty good writer, director, and also actor, she got fired or quit, or I'm not entirely sure what happened because I don't think it ever officially got out. She got fired with 80% of the show already filmed, and it was her script. She was directing the entire show as well. So she was gone, and Sam Levinson essentially took over the show, rewrote everything. A lot of the cast of that iteration of the show was completely dropped. I even think the late Anne Hesh was gonna be in this show, and had filmed all of her scenes before she tragically passed away. The show was essentially rewritten, got a lot more massive stars in here, because granted, there weren't many massive stars in the original iteration, but right now we have, like in this iteration, not including the two leads, Lily Rose Depp and The Weeknd, they were a part of it, but essentially, I think Troye Sivan, who is in this show, was a part of the original cast, but Rachel Sennott, Jennie from Blackpink, Hank Azaria, Eli Roth, Dan Levy, a lot of famous people got added to this when the rewrites occurred. And that's not even mentioning the Rolling Stone, essentially a hit piece from Rolling Stone, that claimed that The Weeknd wanted to lean away from a feminist approach to the show, and that's why a lot of this show was rewritten. And I'll get more into on what the original vision of the show was, because that's out there. But I have to put that out there because that is really integral to what my reception of this show is. So if you don't know what this show is about, The Idol is essentially about a pop star named Jocelyn, played by Lily Rose Depp. She has a mental breakdown during her last tour and everything gets shut down. So she is basically trying to work back up her career and keeps getting hit with all these different controversies with her. And one night, this self-help guru, as the synopsis says, which I don't know where that came in, a self-help guru played by The Weeknd essentially comes into her life and starts pulling inspiration to make her music better and make new music, along with his followers who are all other musicians. It's basically a cult he's running. And just hearing me say that, you could like that idea. I think that's a decent concept for a show. I mean, granted, we all know that the music industry isn't exactly a wonderful place. And knowing that this could essentially be a satire, and just honestly a scathing satire, knowing how graphic Sam Levinson can get, much to my dismay in a couple of areas. But honestly, this show fucking sucked. No, really, including movies and shows, this is pretty easily the worst thing I've watched all year. And I need to get in depth onto why this just didn't work. The original story that was going to be done by Amy Seimetz, the one that got scrapped, was going to focus more on the cult ran by The Weeknd's character, Tedros, I think that, yeah, Tedros, that's his name. And it was going to focus on ingraining his cult of musicians, basically, into the music industry, and having, like, essentially puppet strings going around, and was introducing Jocelyn into this cult. And that is a pretty interesting idea to show just how fucked up a music industry can be, while heightening a little bit of reality, getting a little bit weird with the premise. I think that could have been a great idea. Although, I will just say, no matter what idea that this show would have gone for, The Weeknd is an awful actor. I am not an actor. I have acted in some things, but I am not an actor. Abel, I'm just gonna call him Abel, I don't care. Abel's not an actor. It's actually very obvious that he's not an actor. You can tell that this is his first time acting in something, and he's acting in his music videos. He's very much constantly playing a character in his music videos, which I think is a cool aspect to the music, not to a show. I think Lily Rose Depp does fine as Jocelyn. I understand the appeal for her as an actor. I think she is actually trying, unlike pretty much the rest of the actors in this. And I think it's clear that Lily Rose Depp, like, wanted to do good in this role, and she did. She has a couple other lead roles in movies coming out soon, one of them being Robert Eggers' Nosferatu movie. So, sure, why not? I'll see her in more things. She was fine in this. But it was actually pretty shocking to see how many other actors were so checked out on this show. Maybe it was because this had gone through so many rewrites. Some of the actors that had stayed from the original version were still here, and they had their good moments. But for most of the time, it just felt like that they didn't want to be on set, which, I get it, you've gone through so many things, but at least in terms of television, this was supposed to be, at least, HBO's big marquee Sunday night show. The first couple episodes of this premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. Granted, it got awful reviews there, but come on. I have to go back to the story again, because and the actual writing, and when it comes to, like, dialogue and pacing and all of that. I never usually focus that in my reviews, because I feel like it's so important to highlight here, especially how Sam Levinson writes his stuff. I'm gonna use Euphoria as an example, because that's one of his shows that he wrote that entire show, both seasons. Same thing for The Idol. For Euphoria, the writing's not great on that show. It's serviceable, but there are talented actors over there. There's a reason why Zendaya won the Emmy, I think. It was either the Emmy or Golden Globe for both seasons. There's a reason for that. The actors there, Sydney Sweeney, Jacob Elordi, Alexa Demi, they're elevating the script. That is what actors do. If the writing is not that great, and if they're able to put up with it, with how bad Euphoria Season 2 got with their behind-the-scenes stuff, like, I couldn't believe Euphoria Season 2 wasn't a disaster. And just having good actors and knowing that you want to have them there can work in favor of a show. The Idol arguably has worse writing than Euphoria. I can say that. I will say it, and I think it's true. I think The Idol has worse writing than Euphoria. But it doesn't help the fact that most of the actors, save for the leads and maybe Troye Sivan, doesn't want to be there. It's shocking to me. The story itself in this show is way too all over the place. There's so much happening in this show that it jumps around a lot. You focus on one aspect way too much, but then when you go to another one and like nothing happened, I forgot about a lot of this stuff. It was actually kind of insane how bad the actual pacing of these episodes was. And that's not even including the fact that the 6th episode got cut off. This was ordered as a 6-episode season, but in between the 4th and 5th episodes, it got shortened to 5 episodes. So last night, since I watched the 5th episode last night, that was the finale. Where's the 6th episode? Was it that bad? Are they cutting their losses? And I swear to God, I remember this being announced as like a limited series, just a one-run, 6-episode thing, and that's it. Now they're trying to tell us that not only was it gonna be 5 episodes the entire time, which it wasn't, I looked at that, now apparently they're really hoping for a season 2. I'm gonna go insane if this gets a season 2. This is gonna be so stupid if it gets a season 2. I would not be able to deal with it. There's another big aspect of the show that I haven't even touched on yet, and that's the fact that there's like a lot of gratuitous sex stuff, which normally isn't a big deal to me. It bothers me in Euphoria because they're supposed to be in high school, but in The Idol they're adults, which you're already better than Euphoria for that one. But in that Rolling Stone hit piece from a couple months ago, they had mentioned, it's so deviant, it's so sexually deviant that it fucked me up as a journalist. This is a show about a white woman who likes BDSM a lot. It's if you've read or watched 50 Shades of Grey, there's nothing new here. Honestly, I would even say that the acting and writing was a little bit better in 50 Shades of Grey, which that should tell you everything you need to know about The Idol. I feel like I should mention the technical aspects of the show as well, just because, why not? But it's such a weird juxtaposition from the acting and the writing, because everything from a technical perspective is actually really well done. Like, the cinematography is good. Like, lighting and just like everything from like a composition perspective is actually good. So something happened here. Like the reshoots and the rewriting really fucked up this show to a level where I don't think I've ever seen, whether it's in a movie or a show, and it's actually really funny. I guess that's where I'm gonna end on The Idol. This show really doesn't have anything to say, since it wants to be such a scathing satire on the music industry. It didn't say anything about the music industry. It wasn't negative about the music industry, but it wasn't positive about it either. It felt like a constant neutral reminder that the music industry is always there and it's bad. We know that. Say something about it. I would have appreciated the show a little bit more if it took that risk in that having this cult figure be a more prominent thing in the show. But it's just not. And it's really, really weird that and plus the rewrites happened like that. It was so quick to come through that it just almost didn't happen. And if I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, that this was the show the entire time, but we know it isn't because other actors filmed other things, and the original show was almost completely done with filming. And just what happened? What happened? There are glimmers of this show having potential to be something good or even entertaining. None of this was entertaining. That's the big thing with this. Just there are glimmers here of some things that are good, like Lily Rose Depp. I think she was pretty good, and they should have expanded on the cult aspect more, because I wanted to know more about that. But it just wanted to focus on the absolute worst parts of the show. And that's what it ran with, and honestly, that's not what I wanted from this show. I'm gonna give The Idol a 2 out of 10. I don't think that this is the worst thing I've ever seen, but this is the worst thing I've watched this year. There is a lot here that really could have worked, and could have been an actually interesting show about the music industry, but it didn't want to do that. My question for you is this: since The Idol was actually a pretty popular show, a lot of people watched it, what did you think of The Idol if you watched it? If you didn't, what is your feelings on the outside perspective of, wow, this show's getting really trashed on in a way that I don't think has ever happened recently for such a massive HBO show? So let me know what you think of The Idol down below in the comments. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!